Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm just going to wait just a minute to make sure that everyone who wants to has a chance to start the session with us. There is a link to the argument prompt that we'll be using today in the video description below, so if you want to check that out for your convenience. Okay, I think we're good. Sorry about that. You can never know what's going to happen with technology when you're live, right? Okay, so thank you for joining me. I'm just going to wait one more second to make sure that anybody who wants to has a chance to join this session with us. There is a link to the argument prompt that we're using today in the video description below. So you're welcome to open that up or print it if you want to interact with the prompt that way. I'll also include it in the slides for your convenience in case you don't want to do that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Dawn Knight. I'm an English teacher at Westfield High School in Westfield, Indiana. I miss my students a lot. They make me smile every single day. So I really want to thank you for being here with me today. It just makes my heart so happy to be with students and doing what I love to do. It's also a gorgeous day in Westfield. The sun is shining. So I will be headed outside soon to try to stay active like we all need to do. Okay, so let's get into our warm up. Yesterday, our exam practice included some complexities and nuances in an argument. And I want to take a look at that, read it together, and then that way, those of you who didn't get the exam practice yesterday will still be on the same page and we'll hear the argument and we'll get the benefit of looking at this together anyway, even if you didn't have a chance to do the practice. While dogs are highly social and easily trained with an innate desire to please, cats are, well, cats. But both have succeeded at the process of domestication from their wild ancestors. They are the two most popular pets in the United States. Though so different, both species domesticated themselves by joining humans for their own benefit and providing benefits in return, thus ensuring their places beside humans. Dogs descended from wolves almost 41,000 years ago when humans were hunter gatherers. Although some argue that domestication took place when humans captured and raised wolf pups as pets, far more likely is that some wolves began to follow human hunters. Skilled at hunting in groups, they eventually assisted humans on the hunt, and as their territorial interests merged with those of humans, they provided them with protection and warning against intruders. This combination of usefulness, mutual interest, and similar social structure created a canine-human bond that has endured for millennia. Cats, whose ancestors are the wild cat, and then there's Latin that I won't try to pronounce, were domesticated much later, although earlier than once believed. Archaeologists long assumed they were first domesticated about 4,000 years ago by the Egyptians, whose paintings were the first to depict domestic cats. First was the discovery in 2004 of a wildcat buried near a human skeleton in a 9,500-year-old grave in Cyprus. Subsequently, genetic analysis confirmed the presence of, I'll try it, Felis sylvestris libica in Turkey dating back 9,000 years and in the southeastern Europe dating back 6,500 years. Moreover, that these appearances coincided with the invention of agriculture was not accidental. As farmers began storing grain, rodents appeared in large numbers, and cats soon followed this supply of prey. As with dogs thousands of years earlier, these cat ancestors both benefited from their contact with humans in the form of a steady food supply and benefited humans by ridding farmers of rodents. The recent discovery at the site of a 5,500-year-old Chinese farming village of cultivated millet isotopes in the bones of both rodents who ate the millet and cats who ate the rodents proves that agriculture brought us more than just food. In sentence 5, reproduced below, the writer wants to provide further evidence to refute the claim that the domestication of dogs occurred when humans captured and raised wolf pups as pets. Although some argue that domestication took place when humans captured and raised wolf pups as pets, far more likely is that some wolves began to follow human hunters. Which of the following versions of the underlying text best accomplishes this goal? Okay, so the answer here was C. So the sentence would read, although some argue that domestication took place when humans captured and raised wolf pups as pets, far more likely is that some wolves began to follow hunters, drawn by the smell of cooking meat and the chance to scavenge. This version provides evidence that refutes the claim made in the first part of the sentence because it explains why wolves began to follow human hunters. Thus, by using this evidence, the writer effectively refutes the idea that domestication occurred because humans captured wolf pups. All right, don't worry if you didn't get this one right. It was pretty difficult today. Um, it includes those tensions and complexities of argumentation that we talked about a little bit yesterday, but we're also going to work a little bit more today on counter argument and refutation. So if you didn't get it right, we're still working on it. Okay, so what you need to know today, we're continuing our Unit 9 lessons on the complexities of argumentation. At the top of the slides are the essential knowledge pieces we're working on today, looking at effectively entering into an ongoing conversation about a subject means engaging the positions that have already been considered and argued about. So there's a conversation already happening that we're joining. Writers enhance their credibility when they refute, rebut, or concede opposing arguments and contradictory evidence. And we'll talk about what that means later on. I'll also continue to pull from the student sample Q&As and chief reader reports to show you how this applies to the scoring of the essays. So today, why this is important, the 2018 chief reader report says the highest scoring essays presented nuanced positions that addressed the complexity of the issue. They used the sources, the issue, their knowledge of history, and their power of observation in more balanced and well-reasoned conversations. So in other words, they looked at the multiple perspectives that we've been talking about. And then it goes beyond that as well. And I'll continue to talk about this as we go through these argument lessons. Um, Really, the whole point behind this is that this goes beyond skills for the AP language class. We're actually looking at skills for life. And so when you learn to understand and participate in conversations about these important and complex issues in the world, it gives you a voice and it empowers you. Okay, we already went through the rubrics yesterday, so just really quickly for those of you joining us, we're looking at the sophistication row C, of both the argument and synthesis essays. If you look at the right-hand side under where it talks about the decision rules and scoring notes, um, the the essays that earn this sophistication point did it by crafting a nuanced argument, by consistently identifying and exploring complexities or tensions. And we'll review a little bit about what that means today. Articulating the implications or limitations of an argument, either the student's argument or an argument related to the prompt by situating it within a broader context. And that gets into the limitations and implications that we'll be talking about in today's lesson. The synthesis rubric is the same, except it talks about across the sources because that synthesis essay comes with a packet of sources. Okay, so the focus of today's lesson, we're looking at counter argument, refutation, rebuttal, and concession, and then tensions within the argument prompt. Basically, what that means is that we're going to delve deeper into the issue and eventually become part of the conversation, as we talked about. This will help us move into a more convincing and sophisticated argument. Okay, so first, what are counter argument, refutation, rebuttal, and concession? So this is just layering in some of that complexity. Um, I tried to simplify these to make it kind of easy for us to go through them today. So a counter argument is when you consider the possible arguments against your stance or thesis. Refutation is when you use evidence to show someone that they're wrong about something. So why that counter argument is wrong. Rebuttal is presenting your side of an issue. You may not be proving someone wrong, but you're presenting your perspective and why it's relevant. And then the concession is acknowledging other points of view in an issue. And this is important because it gives you credibility. It shows that you understand that it's a complex issue, and that there might be important ideas on both sides. So we're going to be working with these today as we talk about cats and dogs a little bit more. So on the left, you'll see my sister's cat, Miss Kitty. And on the right, you see my dog, Barley, who's clearly looking very regal. They're both rescues, but to be honest, they probably rescued us more than we rescued them. I actually think cats are pretty great. I don't currently have one, but I have. So please don't get upset when I argue for dogs today. It's just to illustrate a point. It's totally okay if you love cats too. So do I. Um, so for the sake of having to choose one, I chose dog, and I'm going to go with that just to illustrate those concepts today. All right, so let's say I have a thesis. Dogs make better companions and can help keep us healthier than cats can. So, a refutation is when you use evidence to show that someone is wrong about something. So, let's say that there's this possible counter argument that cat owners are healthier than dog owners. Refutation would be saying something like, although both dogs and cats can help protect against allergies, children who own dogs have fewer infections and are prescribed antibiotics less often than children who don't. Or dog owners are more physically active than people who do not own a dog, including cat owners. Okay, so I'm refuting that counter argument. A rebuttal would be presenting my side of the issue. So a possible counter argument would be that cats are better companions than dogs. And I might say, well, dogs are better companions because no one's more excited about being there than a dog. Plus, they're great company on long walks. While there are some cats that take walks, overall, they don't tend to like being on a leash as much. And then there's concession when I'm acknowledging another point of view of this issue. So, a possible counter argument, cats are easier to take care of than dogs. And I might concede that. If a cat has a litter box and plenty of food, they could probably take care of themselves for days. Dogs, however, require a lot of time and attention. Still, dogs are worth the investment because they make such great pets. Okay, so you get a sense of how these work with this very kind of simplistic argument about cats and dogs. Now let's look at how this relates to what we did yesterday. So yesterday we talked again about the complexities of an argument and the shades of gray. Um, that while we see a lot of discussions, particularly online in kind of black and white, I'm right, you're wrong, or us versus them, um, the reality is that issues are much more complex than that. And that instead of those absolutes in black and white, it's more often a shade of gray because of the multiple perspectives involved. We also looked at this list of fields or lenses to kind of help us see a wide variety of perspectives and issues. If we start thinking about which of these are important and then the perspectives within them, it helps us more fully understand an issue. We could even refer to these as stakeholders. So, who is this going to impact? Who has an interest or concern regarding an issue? And this is the argument prompt that we're going to be working with. Again, this is in the links in the video description if you do want to pull this up. So you can interact with it there or it's on the slides. But first, let's read it together so that we're all kind of on the same page here as we continue to move through the lesson. I think it's really interesting to look at this prompt today in 2020 when we have kind of a unique perspective on the issue as we're in the middle of this global pandemic that's impacting our economy and forcing us to kind of reprioritize our lives. We may have seen the impact economically as people aren't buying as many goods right now. So either way, this we have maybe a different perspective on this prompt than we may normally have had. Okay, so here's the prompt. The first Buy Nothing Day, a day on which people are urged to purchase no goods, was organized in Canada in 1992 as a way to increase awareness of excessive consumerism. A Buy Nothing Day has been held yearly since then in many nations. An online article, Buy Nothing Day 2006 press release, urged worldwide acceptance of taking a 24-hour consumer detox as part of the 14th annual Buy Nothing Day in order to expose the environmental and ethical consequences of overconsumption. Write an essay that argues your position on the establishment of an annual Buy Nothing Day. So here's the prompt again, but this time I want you to think about the perspectives that you think would be important in considering a Buy Nothing Day. So which ones are the most important ones to consider? Who are our important stakeholders here who might be impacted by this decision? Normally, I would give you about a minute and a half or so to do this. Instead, I think we're going to do what we did yesterday, which is I'm going to go ahead and move on with the lesson. But if you want to pause so that you can take a minute to do this, and then you can continue through the lesson after that. That way, if everybody's moving at different paces, you can take as much time as you need to. And although we may not have the same, I'm sure there's some overlap here with the lenses that I decided may have important perspectives within them about this particular issue. So we'll use these for the sake of discussion since I can't see yours, and we'll continue to work through the activities here. So I pulled politics, economics, society and culture, environment, ethics, socioeconomic status, I think corporations would be important stakeholders, as would small businesses. So all of these would have multiple perspectives within them of people who would care about this issue or possibly be impacted by it. Okay, so we've narrowed it down to these and maybe some others that you included as well. As I said, yours might have varied a little from mine. Now I want you to consider the various perspectives within these lenses. So for example, if you look at my example at the bottom, I looked at the politics lens to think about the varying perspectives within this lens. So there could be an impact on the stock market that could anger voters, or this might be an issue that should be left up more to state governments than federal governments. It's not really enforceable. Lending to support of this day may illustrate to voters that politicians care about the environment, so they might support it. So you can see there could be a range of perspectives within one of those lenses. So what I want you to do for this activity is to pick just two more of the lenses so you can start getting an idea. Maybe something different like ethics and businesses or something like that, so you can see that range of perspectives and how they all play into understanding this issue in a more complex way. And again, I'm just going to pause here for a second so that if you want to, you can freeze your screen as you go through this activity. And now, like we did yesterday, I want you to think about the tensions within the perspectives or across perspectives. So, in other words, where is there disagreement? Um, you may have one political perspective that tends to support the idea of the Buy Nothing Day, but then you might have another perspective, even in that political lens, that doesn't support the Buy Nothing Day. What I'd like you to do is when you look through those different perspectives, maybe put a plus sign where you see that there might be a perspective that's supporting the Buy Nothing Day, and a subtraction or minus sign to illustrate where they would not support the Buy Nothing Day. And by doing this, what we're really doing is looking at the tensions in the argument prompt and looking into that ongoing conversation, which is one of the focuses for today. Um, but it also allows us to understand those shades of gray. Even if we have our stance on this argument, we acknowledge that there are very real considerations on the other side. So these are the perspectives that we might end up refuting, rebutting, or conceding in our essay that illustrate that we delved deeper and that we fully understand it. It shows sophistication. And this is how we get to that sophistication point in the rubric. Oops, Hold on. So I'm going to again have you pause here if you want to go ahead and take a minute to write down those tensions, that your positive and negative signs for those who support and those who don't support the idea of the annual Buy Nothing Day. So go ahead and pause here, take a little bit of time to do that, and then you can move on with us. We aren't actually writing the essay today, but I do want you to write down your position on the establishment of the annual Buy Nothing Day. So, what is your stance? Thinking about the information that you just did in the previous activity, when you look at all of the variety of perspectives, the different ideas of why one would or would not support the annual Buy Nothing Day, then decide what your stance is on it and write a thesis statement. And try to be a little more complex than we should have an annual Buy Nothing Day or we should not have an annual Buy Nothing Day. Think about the important perspectives that you might include in your stance. So again, here you can pause and take a minute to write down your stance on this issue. So I've included a couple of possibilities on this slide for you. Yours might look a little bit different, but notice how these go beyond the mere pro-con and a little more into the complexities of the situation. So just a couple of examples. This is by no means the only right way to do this. The answers could vary, but just to give you an idea. So although it may be a short-term loss for businesses, an annual Buy Nothing Day should be established worldwide to help consumers focus on what's important in life, and to minimize the impact of consumerism on the environment. Or although it may raise awareness of environmental issues, an annual Buy Nothing Day should not be established because of its negative impact on businesses and the workers who depend on them. So again, I want you to take a minute here to pause if necessary and take a look at your thesis and just do a little self-assessment. Is there a way you can revise it to make it a little more complex? So again, you would pause here and we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, so overall, what we did today was look at the more nuanced argument by looking at those complexities and tensions, by getting into the gray areas of an issue. We also looked at implications and limitations of an argument, and how that puts us in a broader context and again gets us into that more sophisticated element of the rubric. And the argument rubric again is the same, except it doesn't have the sources. Okay, so here's your exam practice for today. You're going to use the first Buy Nothing Day prompt to revise your thesis first off if you didn't a couple of minutes ago. So first write a revised version of your thesis. Make sure that you get those complexities. That's the first thing. And then think about the important lenses or perspectives in order to create a list of reasons why you think your argument is valid. And you'll list that under where it says your reasons. And then finally, I want you to think about those lenses and perspectives again to see if you can create a list of potential counter arguments. So trying to anticipate the arguments for the other side. Okay, so that's your exam practice. And we'll talk a little bit more about that then in tomorrow's lesson. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll join again. Make sure you complete the practice questions so we can talk about it. We'll review the answer. Like I said, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and do this with me. It really means a lot. Please know that a lot of teachers out there care about you so much, and we're rooting for you and we're here for you. Okay, have a great day. Thanks.